Hello, and we're live. Hi, everyone. I can see we have a number of customers that have joined us today. So, welcome everyone to AppSignal's first webinar. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Nuala. I'm part of the customer success team at AppSignal. You might have received a few emails from me, so now you get to put a face to an email name. Joining me today is my colleague Owen, who you should be able to see on the screen, who will be taking us through the feature demo. We also have my colleague Noemi on standby, who's a software engineer at AppSignal, and she's available to help with any technical questions you might have. Owen will begin by taking us through the AppSignal tour, and hopefully by the end, you'll have a much clearer picture of how the various AppSignal features we have can help to gather crucial insights to keep your app healthy and your team unblocked and your customers happy. On the right-hand side, you should see a chat box and a place to drop your questions. So go ahead and ask whatever you like, and we'll circle back to questions after the demo. So with that, I'll hand you over to my colleague Owen to kick us off. So thank you, Owen.
Thank you so much, Nuala. So hello, everyone. As Nuala said, I'm Owen, and I've been working in observability now and monitoring for about 10 years. And as kind of Nuala pointed out, the idea of today's call is to get you started, not just in terms of what's available in the platform and what the different features are, but how we recommend using them and kind of what are the best practices so that you get the most value out of the platform. And yeah, you understand how to make use of all the features that we have available. So we're going to be going through 10 different kind of sections today. But starting at the top, I wanted to quickly kind of go over the idea from a higher level that we're trying to kind of make everybody understand. And that's the idea of pulling all of your monitoring data together. So we're going to be taking a look at metrics, we're going to be looking at logs, we're going to be looking at application performance monitoring and some best practices around tagging and namespaces, some of the extra features we have for things like check-ins and host metrics. So there's going to be a lot of content. As Nuala said, if you have any questions at all, drop them in the chat. We'll come back around at the end. We'll try and answer as many as we can. And anything we can't, we can take offline, and we'll follow up with you on that individually. Okay, so jumping right in. The first thing that we want to talk about, the first feature, and it might be surprising to some of you, is actually custom metrics. And essentially, this is the fact that you can send any metrics, whether they be business or related to tech or your backend, through to AppSignal, and we will hold on to those metrics and store them for you. You can query them, you can alert off them. So why is this important? Well, ironically, one of the biggest challenges with monitoring is knowing when alerts and when problems are actually important. I'm sure everybody on the call has had this. You have some kind of a monitoring system or some alert set up, but you're getting so many errors and messages in the background that at a certain point you either stop paying attention to that channel or that thread entirely, or it becomes kind of a lift to go through and say, okay, what's actually important here? And so one of the solutions to this is custom metrics. And the idea being that if you are able to send us the metrics that are critical to your users, and the metrics that as long as they are in a healthy state, you know the system is performing as you expect it to, then you can be a lot more kind of strategic in what it is you respond to. So to give you an example, for our demo app today, we are going to be demoing, obviously, AppSignal, but connected to an e-commerce app. So when I log in, and I'm sure most of you have seen this screen, the first thing that I'm able to see is I can see my errors and my throughput, my response time, the open errors and performance metrics and things. So a lot of backend information. And it's easy. A lot of customers do start here, and they start their day going, okay, here are my open errors. What should I go and investigate? What are my performance metrics? But for this, and for any system, understanding how these translate into the actual performance of your platform or your app can be kind of difficult. So that's where custom metrics come in. They tell us what is happening. So as an e-commerce site, what I might do instead of starting with this page is I might go to my custom metrics board that has to do with signups and products and carts and checkouts and things like that. And I might come and say, okay, I want to see the different checkouts. Maybe I want to see the status of my orders, how many of them are completed. And if I come down on this page, I can see this graph at the bottom, abandoned carts. So this is a custom metric that I'm submitting. Now, if I see that normally the number of abandoned carts is very low, and then it pops up to over 1,000, This is an example of what is happening. People are abandoning their carts. And that's a huge deal for us because as an e-commerce site, this means we're losing revenue. You can imagine for whatever solution you're providing that you have your own kind of critical indicators of whether this is working. So that's the first step is kind of like custom metrics or metrics in general, tell us what is happening. And then we move over to kind of the next natural step in investigation, which is performance monitoring. This focuses in on kind of where things are happening. In the old days of monolithic systems that were released every year and a half, this wasn't so much of a concern. But now that we have more distributed systems with separate databases and ingress controllers and gateways and whatever it might be, figuring out, okay, if something's actually happening, where in my stack did it happen becomes really important. And that's where we can say in AppSignal, I can imagine I come here, I see that there are abandoned carts, and then I can go over and I can either look at errors that are happening, or maybe I look at performance samples here. And so when you come into the performance page, you can see the different actions, whether or not the team has kind of responded, if they're open or closed. And you can start to see kind of the throughput and how many people are being impacted by these problems. Now here we can say, clean up abandoned cart job. Is it about 11 seconds? Now, especially when it comes to e-commerce, 11 seconds is a huge deal. The BBC actually did a study that said for every 2 seconds of latency, you lose like a large percentage of the viewers. I know this is how it works for me. If I'm trying to buy something and the cart doesn't work, I'm immediately exiting out and going to a competitor. So this is a real issue. It seems like it's related to our cart problem. So I'm going to try and drill down and figure out, okay, if we're having this cleanup with the abandoned carts issue that might be causing more carts to be abandoned, where in my system is this issue happening? So when I open this up, I can kind of see how it's been trending. I can decide whether I want to alert on this in future. They have I can see how it maps to the different deployments, which we automatically pick up. This is a best practice that we would highly recommend is include the actual deployment tracking in your system. But then I can look at individual samples. So for example, if I look at this sample, that's 11 seconds. It's one of the largest ones. And if I open the sample up, first of all, I see a general kind of breakdown of what was actually happening and where the transactions were. But I can also then go down and I can see specifically, okay, this is the large request across the top, but where, as part of this request, did something actually go wrong? I can come down, you can see the system is automatically identifying N+1 queries. So in this case, we're just querying again and again and again against the SQL database. If I go down, I can see that's kind of happening continuously. We have this cascade of kind of repeating SQL queries. So there's probably some kind of error that's happening in the back end that's stopping this from working. So then maybe, as part of the application performance monitoring, I can go over and I can say, okay, well then what are the errors that are actually happening? And we might be able to say, okay, there's a waitlist problem here. There's an action controller, an authenticity issue. But maybe if it's a waitlist, is this kind of, as it compares to the abandoned cart, I could do the same thing where I come in and I see what the error is. I can look at a specific sample of the error, and it can come down and we can say, okay, this is the method, this is where the path was, this is the revision. And critically, I can see the actual backtrace of what happened. And another best practice that we could recommend if you're running GitHub is you can actually connect into GitHub to directly jump from AppSignal to the line of code that this error connects to. So that's kind of the first, like metrics told us, okay, what's happening? We're having an issue with abandoned carts. And then performance and the error tracking tells us, okay, what is the call? Like, where is this actually happening? Maybe it's the SQL Server N+1. Maybe it's the specific queue with the waitlist that's causing issues. And then, so that brings us to kind of the third major piece of monitoring information that you want to have access to in one place, and that's logs. Now, the issue with logs is they're incredibly valuable. In most cases, what's going wrong, the answer can be found in logs. The issue is there are so many of them that it's really hard to actually drill down to what that source of truth is, especially if it's in another system and you're being forced to try and jump to that system and add filters and try and figure out the same time period. Whereas what you can do in AppSignal is instead of having kind of this needle in a haystack, except oftentimes it's 3 different haystacks, you can actually link from APM into those logs directly. So by using this kind of request ID, which is coming through APM and also in the logs, what I can say is, okay, I see this waitlist controller error. Now I want to jump over and I want to see the lines specifically for that error. So now I can see kind of a transaction record from end to end. They started, they requested the sign up, they were rejected. Now in our case with e-commerce, this is one user's interaction. I can see that here. But maybe if you're running a solution or an application that has larger, more strategic customers, it becomes important to say, oh, this is happening to Acme. I want to see everything else that they're dealing with so I can help troubleshoot. I can help maybe replicate the error, something like that. So what I'm going to do is I can then filter on email. I can pull out the request ID so that we're looking at any log that's related. And then I'm able to say, oh, okay, they have been trying to do this repeatedly over and over again. So this is clearly an issue that there's someone clicking and struggling and cannot get through. And so from this, I'm able to see, okay, there's a waitlist issue. There's a SQL Server problem we need to investigate. I can reach out to the customer and I can say, hey, we saw that you're trying to do this and it's an issue. We're working on it. Let us get back to you. And in a matter of kind of seconds, or minutes rather, I'm able to go from something is happening to what the root cause of that issue could actually be. So those are the three kind of major sources. You have your metrics, you have your application requests and errors, and you have your logs. And they're all in one place, and they're all connected. And you can move from APM into logs, or you can move from logs back into the application side of things. Now, even with that connection, though, sometimes there are so many different sources of information that it can still be difficult to kind of correlate what's happening together. And for that reason, we created what's called the time detective. Apologies. So essentially, the time detective looks through, and you can see in this picture here, your errors, your performance metrics, host metrics, alerts, any other information that might be an app signal, and it tries to correlate, hey, this is what is happening at the same time that might be a root cause. So for an example, if I come into orders here, this one we looked at before, and I go look at abandoned carts, you can see the time detective button. I can also run a command / as a shortcut, and wherever my kind of cursor is at that point, it will bring it up. But now we're looking at the specific moment in time when this problem started to occur, when the carts were abandoned. And I'm able to say, okay, were there any errors? And to our point before, where we already found this is related to a waitlist error that we had before. So I immediately can see that this error is kicking off at the same time as the cart abandonments. Or maybe I want to look at performance. I can say maybe it's the fact that products can't be shown and they're taking a long time to show up. Maybe this is why customers are abandoning their carts. I can see if there are any actual alerts I've built, or if the host that I'm running maybe has CPU or memory that's too high. I can look at all my logs across all my different sources, and I can say, oh, maybe I care about what the warning log that was generated at this specific time for this request was. So Time Detective takes basically all the different sources of data at your disposal and correlates them together for you so that it's easy for me to say, I see that there's an issue with cart abandonments. I see that there's a product controller show issue. I can open that issue up. I can open one of the samples. And then I can go down and I can once again investigate, in this case, fetch product inventory. Seems to have been what caused this issue. Or I can go into the logs again and I can see what the logs tell me about the backend. So now that you have kind of this insight, or let's say we've solved the problem, it's troubleshooted, how do we kind of move forward? And that brings us to the last major kind of core part of the AppSignal offering, as I would call it. And that's the actual alerting or anomaly detection. Where essentially, if we read the DevOps handbook or the SRE handbook from Google, the idea is that we want to try and reduce noise as much as possible. So instead of thinking of incidents as being a problem or something that went wrong, we think of them as an opportunity to become more robust in future. So in this case, it might be that we've diagnosed why the carts are being abandoned. And then I just want to make sure going forward that if that issue ever happens again, I'm aware and I know what steps to take. I can replicate the ways to solve it. So what I'm able to do then, and this is, you can do this on a custom dashboard. You can do it on any of the out-of-the-box dashboards that we have for you. So maybe you find that Ruby metrics or Python metrics or Node metrics are really important. Maybe you have an integration with Sidekick or with SQL or something else. Any of these metrics can be used to create an alert to let the team know next time this happens, and I can include steps to try and resolve it. So for instance, if I abandoned carts as something that in future, I want the team to know immediately once this starts to be a problem. Well, then I can go in and I can create a trigger for this specific metric. I can say this is going to be abandoned carts is the name. If I have tags assigned, I can go and I can separate these out by customer, or we'll chat about tags in a bit, but any of the relevant tags that we submit with it. I can choose what I want the threshold to be. And then I can go and I can add information. So maybe I want to add that dashboard that I pulled this from so the team can jump in and get the context. Maybe I want to see this is an already on wait list error, C pull requests, X7, whatever it might be. And then going forward, if this error ever comes up again, I can make sure that either a specific person gets emailed, or a Slack channel gets emailed, or a Teams, or PagerDuty, or OpsGenie, whatever it is you're using to get alerted, you'll be told that immediately. Now, right now, we're doing this anomaly detection based on a custom metric. But if you see here on the left, we can alert on any of the information that you have in AppSignal. So this could be your errors, it could be your performance metrics, it could be host metrics around CPU and I/O. And we're also able to do this, if we'd like to, in logs as well, where within logs, I can create my own triggers. And once again, build what the query is, choose specific kind of filters for that, and then decide who I want to ping with this and what I want them to know. So those are the first kind of 5 sections that we wanted to go over. And that's what we would call kind of these foundational 3 pillars of observability and monitoring is your metrics, your application information and errors, and your logs. And with those 3, correlating them together and creating alerts and anomalies off of them, we can have a really, really robust monitoring and observability system that means we're able to, when we see an issue, identify it immediately, get alerted, find root cause, and fix it as quickly as possible. So that's kind of the core functionality. But of course, didn't stop there. So we have what I'm going to call these for now bonus features, but they are very critical and core to a lot of our customers. So we would encourage all of you to try these out. And most of I think all of the ones I'm about to show at this point have no extra cost. So it's just kind of added benefits to increase that kind of coverage of observability and monitoring, or data rather, that you have available. And the first section is uptime monitoring. So this is something that I think everyone is familiar with. When a page goes down, when Amazon goes down, we want to look at the status page, or our customers want to look at the status page, or maybe we want to have an internal status page that we can put up in the office so everyone can kind of see how the endpoints and solutions are working. Well, in AppSignal, this is easy. We have an entire section of the product. It's called uptime monitoring. And from 4 different locations, different continents, so you can track kind of what the different response times are for region. In this case, I can see like North America pinging up a bunch. We're able to test regularly from all these different locations. You define what success is for that. And we can even create a public status page for you. Simply by just clicking create a public status page, and then it'll take you to a link to basically build something that looks a lot like this. So that's the first kind of bonus feature, just really helpful for, again, kind of the critical from a high level, how are we doing? And also giving that observability to your customers so they're up to date on what's happening in your platform. So the next one then is check-ins. Now, check-ins are more critical. These are background job monitoring, essentially. So these could be cron jobs, it could be processes, maybe it's heartbeat. And once again, you can set this up in AppSignal under the check-in section. And basically, once you create a check-in, you can choose if you want it to be cron job or heartbeat. We have process coming soon. You give it an identifier and a schedule. And then once again, you decide what kind of success criteria for this is, and you can be alerted if the job does not run as expected. Now, this is done through the UI. We also have a command line tool called AppSignal Wrap that allows you to add this kind of instrumentation directly in code so that you don't need to come in and do everything kind of from the UI side. And so the last section I want to talk about, and this is one I think is often overlooked, but really valuable, is our host metrics. Now, these can be metrics from VMs, or if you're in cloud, like some kind of cloud machine. Then we also get metrics from Kubernetes that we can pull, so pod metrics and node metrics, things like that. But to be fair, these are metrics that I think everyone is familiar with. If I open up one of my hosts, I know what I want to see. I want to be able to see what the load is. I want to see where the CPU is. I want to see if memory usage is high. I can see here that it looks like CPU is kind of pinging in the same exact way that my cart abandonments were going. Now, 3% is probably not root cause, but still, that's a correlation that might be interesting to investigate. I want to care what the disk looks like. I want to see if there's I/O or if network has somehow kind of, is flying up and maybe my router is overloaded and that's why something's going wrong. So you have access to all of these host metrics as another source of data so that if I see, for instance, that SQL query running a really long time, maybe it's helpful for me to switch over to the host and say, okay, show me the metrics for the host that is running that SQL server. Maybe it's out of memory. Maybe it doesn't have enough CPU. Maybe the infrastructure is the root cause. And you have access to that data in AppSignal as well. Now, a lot of this will be automatically connected if you use our standard extensions. But we also have a standalone agent. So if you have other hosts that you would like to have included, they're running some third-party service or something else, and you want to have that observability, you can install the standalone agent, and they'll appear under the host section as well. So those were three kind of bonus, I would say step 2. Once you have your metrics, your APM, your logs, then check-ins, host metrics, and the uptime monitor are 3 really interesting features that we add there as well. So that basically, in terms of what's kind of generally available in the platform, that covers most of the sections. We're going to pivot now and talk about just 2 areas that are more best practice in terms of how we see customers moving from like crawl to walk to run. And the first one is namespaces. So namespaces in AppSignal are a fundamental unit of separating data logically. So you still have access to all of your data in one platform, but if you need to filter down, or if one team has specific services they're available for, or if your app is separated into different sections, namespaces allow us to easily filter and switch between those different kind of areas without needing to keep the data like logically separate. So to give you an example, for our system, since we're doing e-commerce, we have 2 namespaces. We have the background namespace and we have the web namespace. So when I log in, I'm seeing error rate and throughput and response time broken out by namespace. But maybe someone on the team is not a web developer, doesn't handle the web. Maybe they just handle the background. Well, in that case, just by clicking here, they can zoom in specifically on the errors and the performance issues and the error rate and throughput that is just relevant to their namespace. And this is ubiquitous throughout the product. If I go over and I look at my errors, I don't want to see the errors for every system across the whole kind of platform. I want to see the errors that are relevant to me and to my team. And so using namespaces, we're able to do that separation. So a note to the customers that are on this call who are still getting started, sometimes we see different applications being sent, when in reality, they should be different namespaces within one application, so that at the end of the day, I'm still able to say, oh, show me all of my logs, or show me all of my errors. And then if I need to, I can use namespaces to drill down on a specific area. So that's one key kind of best practice, is make sure that you're setting up your namespaces correctly. And the next one is tagging. Now, tagging is kind of obviously a general kind of term that everyone's kind of familiar with. But in this case, what it allows us to do is filter and search on particular samples. So you might imagine here that there's this on waitlist error that we had before. I can look at all the different samples, and I have this ability, I can see the methods and stuff, and I have the ability to search on these. But if I open up a specific sample, I can see the tags that are attached to this. So these tags are now within the sample page. This makes the sample searchable. So you can imagine a lot of these are out of the box. So the method and the path and the response status, these are all things we're going to collect for you. But if you were to add a tag like customer, then on the samples page, you could search by customer and see all of the samples relevant to your specific customer. And then you could do, okay, I want to see all the 400 errors that this customer experienced. Or for our case in e-commerce, maybe we have product category or provider category. So I can say, I want to see all of the things that interacted with Stripe or with Adyen or something like that. Really, the possibilities are endless in terms of what's actually relevant to you and to your business. But adding those tags or having a strategic discussion about what tags would be helpful is going to save a lot of time down the road when developers are troubleshooting, following up on a customer request, trying to slice and dice data and cut down on a specific kind of like section, really, to do their investigation. So in terms of like the best practices, the only two we've really mentioned so far, and there will be future webinars and information coming out, but the two we'd like you to focus at the beginning are going to be the namespace setup and the tagging setup. And those are going to make everything just a lot easier down the road in terms of the time it takes to drill down and investigate issues. So that's really all I had prepped for today. It's 10 points. I know it's a lot of information, but the general idea that we want you to take away from this is that the amount of observability and monitoring data you're getting can be very overwhelming. Our entire goal is to make it very simple to log in, see what your errors, what your performance problems are, see what your business metrics are doing, and easily connect and navigate this data without having to switch context. So without a ton of training, it becomes very easy to figure out something has happened, where has it happened, why has it happened, and how do I fix it? I hope we shared some of that today. So thank you all. And with that, I will hand back over to Nuala.
Thank you so much, Owen. So yes, we've covered quite a lot today. I wanted to give a brief refresher on how our pricing structure works, as we've been through quite a lot of features. So just to make sure it's clear on how everything is tied together. So as Owen mentioned, almost all of our features we've run through today are included in your AppSignal plans. Our pricing is request-based. So every time your app handles a web request or a background job, AppSignal captures and analyzes that request to give you full observability into your application's performance and errors. So things like custom metrics, uptime monitors, host metrics, they don't count towards your request limit either. The only feature add-on for monitoring that we have is logging. So that wraps up everything that we had to go through today. I can see there's no questions in the chat. That's absolutely fine. If they come to you later on, please reach out to support@appsignal.com and we'll be able to answer them there. So thank you so much for joining and hope to see you in the next webinar. Bye.